dangerous game, dangerous big game, only with iron sight. Scope is. Morning, everyone. I gotta get the meeting going, because we had several today. So I would accept the motion to accept October 31st stands, Dave seconded, all in favor? Aye. Aye. Opposed? Hey, Kevin, the floor is yours.
All right. I have 4 items on the agenda. I have 2 more I had to bring with me that were brought to my attention, but I'll start with what's on the agenda. We need an amendment to our local law 9 of 2013. I'll give you a little bit of background on what's going on there. The local law 9 of 2013 was an amendment to local law 4 of 1989. The 2013 local law applied to out of district and in district sewer connections. The interpretation of this law was recently brought into question. The commissioners are moving to amend the local law through change the wording and include wording, clarify the wording that connection fees are per unit and are paid at the time of application prior to any improvements in commencement of work. So I'm asking you guys, I believe you have a copy of the local law, would be to move that, and we also need to set a public hearing. I'm asking that public hearing be done as soon as possible.
So is this one of the application and the local laws?
Right. Yeah.
Per unit. Would that be like 5 apartments, 1 building, or would that be 5 apartments, 5 units?
Now, does every one of those connections are separate going out to the line?
No, so that's more what you're talking about is how many permits they'll need. So it's 1 connection to our line, but there's 10 units behind that. It's 1 connection, 1 permit, but the amount per unit would be due.
Of 2,500 for each one of the 5.
Right. Yeah. There's another qualifier on top of that. So apartments aren't 100% 1 unit. There is in the 1989 local law, there's a breakdown on classification of units. So I believe apartment complexes are 2 units for the first 2, and then it's 0.8 unit for every livable unit thereafter.
Dana.
Hey Kevin, there's a bit of discussion down there about channel rates. The way it's described right now, they have to pay it when they apply. That's not when they connect. And I don't disagree with it. I think that's when they should.
Right.
Well, could we call it something different? Instead of connection fee, call it like a capacity fee.
Well, whatever you want, you're doing the law now.
That's not right. You were around when they amended it. Was the reason they called it a connection fee? That's not actually.
I think the original one said connection fee.
Is it time to look at changing the name?
It's a pretty standard.
I see what you're saying. I mean,
And
sometimes
too.
Sometimes capacity and connection are different issues though. Like a major project like this has to get its own capacity approved through DEC. So not to say your train of thought's wrong, but I wouldn't call it capacity.
Is there a different name you could make?
Right.
Clarify, so it's a lot, because I think it's confusing. When somebody applies, it says on their connection fee, I think they think, okay, when I connect.
When you
I
connect.
pay. That's not what we're doing. We're making them pay upfront, which I'm okay with. I think it should be that.
Right.
But we call something different.
I'm just trying to understand it, so I'm gonna ask a question. Is that supposed to cover the cost of the connection? Is that the purpose of it?
No, this money in its entirety, it goes into a separate account that's.
I see that in here described, but I'm just wondering, what is the purpose of the fee? Is it supposed to cover the cost of the connection? Or is it supposed to cover the cost of connection and maybe help catch up on getting into this program later than when it was developed many, many years ago? Almost like an initiation fee. I was just wondering, what's the purpose to be able to derive that number?
Well, I mean, with the permit applications, there's also an inspection fee, which covers a little bit what you're talking about, the district's cost. The connection fee, I guess it goes into an account that's going to be used for inflow and infiltration reduction. Because our system is stressed, you know, we're a combined sewer system, there are 11 different areas throughout the system that overflow, so this was developed a decade ago now to an attempt to build a reserve so we can address, you know, the top of the priority for any combined sewer system and try to separate that, so. You know, and whether it's one home being built, new connection, or, you know, a couple hundred apartments, that money's gonna go into an account to try to help the entire system.
No,
Essentially, what you said, they're coming in after the fact. So the connection fee is to catch them up, that goes into a fund for this item. Essentially.
Yeah, I read where we're going in, on it out, but it's almost like an initiation fee as well.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's why it, I understand that, that makes sense why it's $2,500 per unit fee rather than $2,500 per connection.
Well, out of district is 25.
That's what I was,
In district,
yeah, I see it's a town.
it's assigned the same.
Thank you.
any other question? Okay. Sorry about that. Are we moving it with Dana's suggestion? I mean, do we
Yeah,
have
no, I'm just saying, but I'd like to see them consider maybe when they're.
in the final, right?
Well, yeah, it becomes in final form when it's introduced, so.
This is still draft form that it's in front of you anyway, so we'll consider it.
As far as economic development goes and housing for people, will this act as like brakes to slow some of this mega apartment complexes from coming here, or is this fair?
Well, I mean, I can't
Is
really,
it punitive, Roger,
Well,
Angela?
Apparently not, because he's paid, this has been paid by every other project he's done, so. I mean,
This is
right, and I mean, the whole
yeah,
basis behind this is to be fair, you know, if someone's building a home connecting out of district and there's 2,500 units, you know, there's never been a question there on the wording, but, you know, because we have much larger projects, because the area is growing.
Well, how did you come up with $2,500?
actually, I think before my time.
You might have been in right at the end of it, maybe. Well before me. It was an 80, it was late 80s, early 90s.
So it's been $2,500 for like 20 years.
Yeah.
And that's enough to keep up with.
$1,000, $1,000.
Well, it's 1,000 in district, 2,500, right? Okay. Okay, we have a motion. All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Now we have to set a date. How many years that?
Normally, it would be the December meeting, and you do it in your January regular meeting, but I guess we want to change that process and find, have that.
Yeah, I would just like to ask that it be done as soon as possible. You know, because we'll get to number 2 agenda, but we have a moratorium on permits right now, so Roger mentioned there's a January 2nd meeting, maybe we can do it then.
Yeah. Obligations.
That's, you know, that's gonna do it possible, if that's not possible, just do it. Oh, okay.
We did to the 15th, and then until the 28th, our meeting. If you think I can put it in ahead of the board meeting and anticipation that we're gonna have a public hearing.
I don't think we should.
And what is the January meeting be? The normal January meeting? Third Friday.
19th.
Well,
It's approved on the 15th, so newspaper probably closed. We did it in one publication, at least on the 14th, for the week of the 17th. It couldn't get into the 28th, and that one. Day, you'd be having your public hearing.
I mean, the moratoriums for 100 days, but half of it as fast as possible. Doesn't seem like that would be the most reasonable path. So, public hearing for normal January meeting for this meeting. So related to that local law amendment, in the meantime, the districts, the commissioners have adopted a temporary moratorium on all permit applications. On out-of-district connections and permits. We're just asking for this committee's endorsement on that moratorium.
Also, give for discussion.
Okay, second, go ahead, Dave.
So my question is, what do we have in terms of putting a moratorium in place? Is that something we have to approve also, Roger?
Sure.
Thank you.
Any more discussion? That's
What was the main basis for putting that more?
What's that, I'm sorry?
The local law,
Right,
you need to change it before you proceeded on it, the reason for the moratorium.
yes.
all in favor of the motion? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
We received a grant in 2019 for our FE1A project. The $500,000 grant, they recently approached us, asking us to deobligate the funds. You know, we were trying to hold on to the money as long as we can, but there's a couple things going on. Even if that project were to happen, it's gonna be much more money at this point than it was back then anyways. And by deobligating these funds, we have it in writing from them that we're able to reapply for the same funding source for other projects, or even the same project if we get a new project estimate. So we deobligate the funds today and then reapply tomorrow.
I'm taking it for discussion, but I have a question. So if you're deobligating it and you have permission to reapply, getting the money automatically are two different things.
Right.
Which
But,
is it?
well, we would have to reapply, go through the normal process. You know, the money would go back into a pool. And it's not gonna be ours anymore. It's gonna go back into the statewide MBRC pool and we would reapply, federal pool. We reapply if it's the same project. We would assume we would score well again, you know, if it's another related project. Typically, stormwater separation projects do score well. And we have other projects that are happening much faster than this FE1A project that we can apply for immediately.
It's all right, check.
It's a mail check.
My question is we applied for this money and didn't get the project done in time. We applied for this money and didn't think we had a chance in getting it, so we applied for it before we were ready, or because we're turning it back at their request, it's gonna hamper our chances of getting it.
No.
Just-
That's what they've told us. It doesn't affect anything moving forward. This project was planned to be a grant only project and it just never got completely funded and never got off the ground. So as of now, this project isn't happening. We'll have to revisit it sometime in the future, but we have more immediate projects that we can apply for this specific funding right away.
Right.
What's the estimate cost now on that same project?
It's been a couple of years. Dave mentioned something.
When we applied for funding, covered us. Back in the planning board put this together. And we were going for them, funds. You guys remember, right? We believed at that time it was about $13 million. Back when we first started, I think Joe was about $5 million. 5 to 6. We've gone up from there and we don't know what it is now. But now, it's that project.
COVID was
$5 or
between,
$6 million for an option. But that would go.
right, most, I don't know this one in particular, most grants are percentage based, so if you get a new project cost and you reapply, in essence, we get a bigger grant amount.
And also, you have to obligate the funds within a certain period of time where you turn it back. It's the same in most grants. If you don't use it, you don't get it started, because in this case, you couldn't get additional financing, then it just dies. And that's in the grant.
Motion to deobligate the funds. All in favor? Opposed? Thank you.
Our capital improvement plan, we went out to RFP. Believe I've mentioned it a couple times in these meetings. We scored them. Lake George, Lake Champlain Regional Planning Group, also helped us with scoring. They have scored based on several criteria, including experience, financial responsibility, quality of proposed staff, logistics, familiarity with the project, cost, and a couple others. The Board of Commissioners recommend award to Arcadis of New York. And,
A motion to. By Mr. Fisher, second by Dave. Dana, you got.
That name sounds familiar. Does that sound familiar to you? Aren't they the ones that did the GED watering? Engineering report?
That, you're right. They did the decommissioning report years ago.
Okay. But they never worked for us, they worked for GE. That report was very well done, so.
Well, there you go.
I've heard only great things about them.
They call the bridge a temporary bridge. That was in my-
There you go.
All in favor of awarding.
Yeah, let's talk about electric.
I'll show up in there.
They almost got you broke. Yeah, another month. All in favor? Aye. Oh,
I have two other items I brought with me today. One of them was just brought to my attention, well, I guess they both are just brought to my attention. We had, the map plan report back for our sewer district 1, which was approved. There's an amendment to the scope of services. Basically, we had the engineering firm help us with the billing structure. There was additional work added on, minor, it's another $4,000, but nonetheless, it's an amendment to the contract, so just bringing that to the table today.
move the amendment. Moved by Dale, second. By Mr. Fisher, question?
Additional budget as well as getting the money line.
I believe there's
More questions? All in favor? Aye. Aye. Oh,
And the last item is, I was just recently talking with Al about this. We need a budget amendment. The wastewater treatment plant down there needs a network upgrade. Without going too more complex, where I'll lose myself with that, with the IT talk, but, basically our IT department is recommending we upgrade our network, for both reliability to, replacing outdated equipment, cybersecurity, and all that. And we have a price, we have it on good word that price is gonna go up next year. It's like to do it now, we have the money, so what I'm asking for is a budget amendment to accomplish this network upgrade in the amount of $50,000. We're going to use our capital projects area of the budget to accomplish that.
second. Motion and second.
I just wanted to add, in talking to Terry yesterday, that increase for next year is like 15%. So that would be savings by purchasing it this year.
Now, how involved is our IT in this?
Very involved. They went through and they gave me the complete list of what we need, and they went and got the quote for that, and I believe anything they can install and do the work, they're going to do.
The 50,000 is for, it's not an outside firm, it's for internal.
That's for parts and equipment. I believe 6,000 is installation. The majority is just hardware. Our IT is gonna do everything they can.
So the county is charging the sewer district.
Well, no, this quote is from an outside source. It's from the vendor who's selling us the parts.
So that's the material then, if it's an outside source. And now there'll be a limit for our IT to do the work down there, right?
6,000 is for the vendor.
Not sure about that one, the answer.
Our IT will
You
not
have
be
to
building a
answer.
sewer district.
Hmm?
Our IT will not be building a sewer district unless you tell them to.
But they'll be doing the work without billing, but I thought that you built the sewer district for, your work.
I do.
Then why is the rest of the taxpayers covering the cost of the labor down there for IT? I mean, if there's a good explanation, I have no problem, but
Now, here's one,
okay.
you tell me if it's good. Affecting the network. If we are part of the county's network, that's what this is, that's what drives this, is the connection to the county's network system. It is part of the county's network system. So, I'm not saying it should be, that's not what I'm saying, I'm not arguing any of it, I'm just saying that reasoning is to protect the county's network. As well as the district's information. That you don't want it to be hacked and.
Well, that's not a good reason, but I mean, I understand why, because you say that, Brian, but why aren't they doing it to all the towns? Do all the IT for all the towns, protect that county network. I'm just saying that if we're treating one way, we ought to be treating everything one way, so I'm trying to understand it.
I think this, the discussion in that question has come up in previous committee meetings as well. And I think it became, well, our employees, actually, they're county employees that work down at the sewer district. And if we started, I think if we started billing the sewer district for things, we'd all of a sudden see that we might have some things billed back to us. I think that was part of the discussion as well. And I think that's why that, has never changed in the past.
I don't know if that, my Putnam is not tied to the county network at all.
No, mine either. But what I'm saying is, if you did want to, then it would have to be free, because it's free to the sewer district, who is a private entity, yet we're using the county.
County employees aren't county employees, they're county employees.
I know, but.
Raise your hand, please.
I was talking to you, I was talking to him.
Raise your hand.
Dana had his hand up.
Dan is absolutely right. This district has ratepayers. And how many times have you heard that if somebody flushes the toilet in Hartford, we should have to pay the sewer district? This is the exact same thing. They have ratepayers that are supposed to pay for everything that happens in that sewer district. And the thing is, because it's connected to the county, Joe, BS, I'm sorry.
Amen.
Are they currently on the network and being added to the network, or we're just making the network secure?
Making it back up to zero.
More questions?
So what, do we have a resolution on the floor?
We have a resolution on the floor
And what is it again?
to amend their capital fund budget 50,000 to do this upgrade.
I'd like to amend that.
And the 50,000 is coming from the sewer district.
That's what I said, their capital.
With no cost to the county taxpayers.
Right, yeah, the sewer district's paying for that.
Yeah.
This is not to do with what your other argument about billing, you know, this is specifically us paying for material out of sewer district funds for sewer district.
He's asking that IT bill you for their time.
Oh,
That's really what I'm looking.
They never have, so this isn't a change at
Well,
all.
because it slipped by me is all I can say, Brian. I didn't realize it. Because many a time we've discussed things getting carried, like when the different towns, and I think you're in that with the real property, you paid your own way. You had your, wasn't there an appraiser come through from the county work up there? I know they did another town. Other towns, yeah, but not. I mean, it always has been that.
I second his motion to amend.
I would recommend that's a policy, should come before IT and we revisit that, because now we're introducing stuff to the towns and the county and the sewer district, And I think that should be a separate discussion from this. one.
Yeah,
I asked IT about this previous. And I was told that they got reimbursed. You're in Haversham.
for sewer or for your town, guy?
Wow, I know for town. I thought it was for sewer.
I always thought they did, they paid your money.
I thought so too. I thought there was something that we charged them.
The only billing that I'm aware of is the billing that I do for the collection. We don't bill for payrolls, we don't bill for accounting, we don't bill for vouchers, we don't bill for IT. There's all kinds of services that we don't bill for. The only thing that we bill them for is for us to collect their user fees in April and October. That's all we currently bill them for.
The county pay user fees or this?
That's what I was just saying.
It does.
We're paying our way.
Yeah,
And
it
yet
has a
the Dollar
sewer bill,
Beacon
yes.
is paying for helping you guys out, and I don't think that's right.
Does his motion need a second? And then.
I gotta be clear on what his motion is.
The sewer district pays covers their own costs for services rendered by the county. I think would be the easiest way, because now I had thought the way Al spoke before, and I'm sorry, I misunderstood, that all of this cost and time that is involved in, dealing with the sewer district expenses and billing was covered.
They haven't got that kind of.
No, I'm just saying that.
He's dealing with more about it.
Okay, can you just, yeah,
For all.
well, for anything with the sewer district.
Oh, it's probably.
Yeah.
You'll know from now on.
Okay,
I think that
That's all how we have been.
global is the question that we should be talking about. Not public works, but government operations and IT.
Yeah,
But it's a public works work.
Being done in the public.
It is already.
You just can't, you can't IT
IT
because you can do a head count. I know you have more yes votes in IT than here.
I completely hear what you're all saying, but you know, this is for a budget amendment. You're talking about a policy change. They're kind of two separate issues we have going on here. So you know, that needs to be visited. I think there should be plenty of conversation towards that.
Also comes in, government.
That's not how, you know, I'm asking for a budget amendment to buy the hardware on how you amend that. Make it pay for, we don't even know how much that would be at this point.
Well, you kind of have to know how you're gonna spend it. It might be tied in that way.
You do have a point. Do you want a budget amendment just for material? That's what you're saying. I mean, and we are getting into policy.
Are you withdrawing the amendment to the amendment that you were making, so that we get back to just the basic, or what? I gotta know where we're at.
Well, no, I'm not withdrawing anything. I mean, it's voted on one way or the other, up or
Okay,
down. And I
so-
mean, and then you can say you can forward the policy to government ops to flesh it out, but it's gotta be coming out of public works that
We don't get.
we want the sewer district to cover their costs.
Well, if you make an amendment and passes here, just to get to the government apps.
Stuff
So,
will be installed before government.
right. And our treasurer just said that there isn't enough money in the sewer district to pay for every service that we provide. So that's your amendment. We gotta figure out where they're gonna get more money from, I guess.
500 for the last 20 years, he raised up.
Now, if you say there isn't enough money, this is scary. How much is the county putting into the sewer district?
What did we do?
I mean, it's starting to sound scary here.
I'm saying if you looked at every dollar of staff time that went into assisting the sewer district, and payroll, accounting, vouchers, technical assistance, budgeting, if you added all those dollars up, it's not gonna be a small number, Mr. Shaw.
Well, and
So,
I know that. That's what makes me so nervous about this. It's not.
But they're not additional dollars. I know that people don't like this argument when I give it. They're dollars you would have spent anyway. You would have paid my salary whether I helped the sewer district or not, I guess is my point. They're not additional taxpayer burdens.
So,
And I know that not everybody likes that argument, but they're not additional dollars. You're not gonna pay me.
But it's the source of the revenue, either from the Hartford taxpayer or an Eastern taxpayer or a rate user. I'd rather see the revenue come from the rate payer.
Understood.
I think we should get a handle on the whole thing instead of just trying to pick a piece right now and just go right in. We should have a separate meeting on this before we try and set policy when we don't even know what's the impact on our in terms of dollars.
So I don't see either one of the two, motioner or the seconder to the amendment withdrawing. So we're gonna vote on Dan's amendment that the sewer pay for every service that we provide from here on out, which is setting policy. All those in favor, aye. All those opposed, nay. Okay. And we'll go back to the original amendment, which is 50,000 to purchase the equipment, so we can get, they can get the IT upgraded.
I believe, as part of that instance, is installation by an outside party, so I wouldn't, not specifically equipment, just for the network upgrade.
Okay, we have that motion on the floor. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? You don't wanna go for another one?
Okay, yeah, there's nothing.
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion then that we forward to government ops, a motion to review the policy for funding departments that do not cost, whose costs are not equally, distributed by the, rest of the county.
Thanks, Brian.
Can I request that not start to January just because we're doing back-to-back meetings in December and it wouldn't be fair for us to take
You
2
get-
hours for
You
that
get, you get a
discussion.
salary for coming here, do your job.
Doesn't matter to me, it's the rest of you, because we're doing what, 4 meetings in a row that
It's
day?
too much work for you.
It's up to the chairman.
It's
to put it on the
Melissa.
schedule.
You get paid too.
Okay, we have a motion. To start
I just
with. Do we have a
Yes,
second?
it started in January.
Okay, I'm sure we're sleeping on the switch.
I'm too busy attacking everybody.
Right after.
Okay, we have a motion to review the policy of expenditures of, as however Dan described it, by the county. All those in favor, aye. Okay, all opposed? We have one opposed, all right. So that will be busy January meeting.
Well, you couldn't, because that, my thought
Why?
was you're gonna
December,
explore it.
you have a
to see what the
December
costs
government
are.
ops, you have a December government ops committee meeting, right?
You know, we have, what do we have, 5 or 6 right in a row, one behind the other in
So-
December? I think we're shaking our head.
Maybe lunch.
Same as you.
Chair of the committee, you decide when it
Right, I
She
said
might not be in
January.
January though.
Right.
Are you gonna have, in your agenda, are you gonna have other?
You want to be there.
Putting it on the January is then, like,
Well, I think the annual raise up in December under other. Right, Dan?
Fine.
Depends what the meeting is. For IT.
This is for complete. This motion that you guys just approved. Mr. Hicks.
Mr. Nolet, are there other hybrid amorphous organizations throughout this county that we would do the same thing for, like LEAP and several others that we need to address all at once, or? Yeah. Can you mention some of the other ones that might be involved?
Soil and water, the component unit of the county, LDC is a component unit of the county. Tobacco Asset Securitization Corporation is a quasi entity. Yes, there are other fringe groups, and I can hardly wait to track my staff's time.
So shouldn't they all be involved? If
Well, that's-
one's involved, they all should all be involved?
That's what he asked for.
So they kill it.
Yeah.
You're all can of worms and they can't even keep track.
Well, no,
or BOCES for all the work personnel has to do for civil service. I think we're straying into something we don't want, but if you're requesting the discussion, we'll put it on the agenda, but I just don't think we can, and I don't think anybody's really gonna be able to grasp all of it, but we wanna bring the information forward and we wanna look at it in January, whatever, we do it. But I think there's way too many, I think it's not, the request is there, so.
I think the reasonable approach to this is we reviewed all these things. And some things are thumbs up, some things are thumb down. There, we may be very surprised at some of the things that everybody in the county is paying revenue towards. And we may not object to it. I don't think Dan's gonna object to every single thing, but I think we should see what they are and decide yes, no, yes, yes.
That's the most plausible approach to this.
Thank you,
And it should take time to put all that together.
Well, I was gonna ask Dana, are you gonna come back, sit in the gallery there for this? Or?
I think this is gonna get a lot smaller because most of what Al mentioned benefits the whole county, whether it's leak, whether it's soil and water, that benefits the whole county. I've got no problem with that. But you're gonna see that the sewer district does not benefit
Well, that's wrong.
the whole county.
But
Yes, it does.
Okay, let's
Okay,
see
Mark,
the meeting.
Does it benefit me?
this meant, Dan, according to the argument to these guys, with the open end that's down there at the sewer, they can, I just asked Melissa, they can get into our systems through there. Much easier than they can through anywhere else here, so it's helping protect our system here by having our IT people working there. Dana, did you have anything?
I do, just, I go from Housework, like, bring the tractor. Wyoming County Fair providing. For that, do they get paid?
They're trying.
Wash your hand there. There's
So
a,
Washington County Tractor Parade, Washington
Oh,
County.
I don't know.
Never heard of it.
Public safety does too.
yeah.
I mean, so there's a lot of stuff. We got graduates.
There is, when we start unpacking these, we're gonna see the totality of it. It's, you may not be able to say. Happy to have the conversation, but I think we're opening up.
What do you think you should say no to everything? One.
Well, I guess it has-
umbrella.
I just need to county fair pay.
But the Washington, so does Hartford pay, when you guys have a fair and the sheriff bill, you guys pay for that?
Yes, there are tax dollars, county tax.
So you don't pay extra, my point is, you don't pay extra.
We would. If somebody sent me an invoice, I would gladly pay. Because I think it's fair.
I just want.
Yes, Mr.
The sewer district does bring a value to the town. We can have that discussion later.
Okay.
I sit
Cool.
Nice to ride on the car, but I do love challenge. Yes.
Hey. Sewer district down.
Right out about doing this?
I think Irving's issue brings to the county. Tied into this. You wanna start?
I'm letting them wind down a minute.
Oh,
Are you guys all ready?
Yes,
We're
sir.
gonna talk carpools. That's gonna be fun.
So back in June of 2021, I believe it was, I presented this PowerPoint. So there was a lot of questions last month about carpools, so I have updated it and it will show the 2021 and the 2023 numbers, so it's kind of easy to follow, I hope. So just as a recap, the fund has two categories of cars. There's fleet. So fleet vehicles are assigned to a particular department, and pool cars are unassigned and you can just use them if you need them. Great. So in 2021, we had 13 pool cars. Now we have 16, sort of 15. One is really reserved for Newco in case Newco needs it. They do use it a lot. So there's really 15 unassigned cars in the pool. The ranges before were 07s to 2020s. Now they are 12s to 23s. And the pool mileage is still roughly around 150,000 per year. This shows,
Excuse me one second.
Yeah.
So 15 cars equals 150,000. right? Because the red was the last number for 2023, the previous,
Yes,
so 15 in brackets is 2023.
yes. So this shows the different departments that have fleet vehicles. Anything in red has changed, whether it's up or down. Anything in black has remained the same from June of 2021 to current November 2020.
I have a question to that. And
Fire has one. But does the fire coordinator ever drive from his home here to get the vehicle to drive to an investigation? Why would he need one for fire? Or unless, does he take it home with him? The car?
Yeah, it is. It's got lights on it and everything. It's a larger vehicle, SUV type.
So wouldn't he respond from his home
I think he said
if he takes that home?
I'm not sure. I don't know. I can find
I
out.
mean, when they show up on the scene, they're loaded with more than just one person too. They usually come in.
And he comes from our guy.
I have John first.
This is a signed plate, it's not car.
Dan?
Yeah, district attorney and probation, they've increased the car. Have they increased employees down there? In those two departments? I mean, for a car to be increased,
They have,
so that, it explains that.
I remember probation specifically, yes.
Go back to your fire vehicle. There's no way that in an emergency situation, that the fire marshal that he could come from his house to pick up a car and get to, emergency scene. That's the reason I has at home, because he's on the call 24 hours a day, 7 days a week for emergencies. And we can't expect him to take an hour to come over and get a car to go someplace else, especially.
I didn't know he took it. I didn't know he took it home. Yeah, I'm okay with it.
Dan?
The highway and shop, they've gone from 30 to 35?
Yep.
Is there an explanation to jump that?
Yes, because the bridge crew is required, well, is not required. So the bridge crew used to drive their cars to the job.
Yeah, I do that.
Now they drive our cars and start at 6 o'clock.
I have a current question for Melissa. Are the DAs always on call now, need cars?
There's a few departments, probably 4 to 5, when Deb and I were reviewing this, that we're following up on, because those questions are exactly what we want to ask. When they use the vehicles, do they use all the vehicles? We have mileage reports. Some vehicles aren't being used as much as others. So we do want to follow up on that, and we have a meeting scheduled, right after the holidays to meet with the departments, to get more information on that.
I would think the central arraignment would not make them need more.
There's a DA, ADA always on call, just like there's somebody from my office always on call. I have nothing to do with a car, parenthetically, because my office doesn't have a car. The person that's on call, they just drive their car here. But there is a person always on call. And from the public defenders, the DAs, alternative sentencing, DSS, who does have always have an on-call worker and emergency probation. So there's a group of those people, they're always on call for non-cap arrangements.
But I think our courts are mostly at night, so I think that they couldn't pull cars.
Some of the bigger ones are during the day, but most of the other ones are at night.
Oh, silly question, I'm having a brain cramp, what's W now?
Oh, weights and measures, sorry.
Man,
Almost new car that Gina got through that grant a couple years ago, ended up where?
In Nuco, 12.
Yeah, newcomers.
DSS is 14 and Nuco is 12. I shouldn't have put them on the same line. I don't
The
think,
Gina cars are part of that.
I don't,
Yes,
I mean,
Gina's cars are, it should be OFA instead of newcomers.
Okay, there's a separate OFA line with them.
oh, Nuco is not Nuco, it's OFA.
Yeah, nobody knows how newcomers means anymore, but that was
Well, I don't know. I
the
thought it was,
terminology years ago.
You know, you've been here long enough when you're after third acronym.
okay.
Yeah.
So it's what, OFA?
Yes.
Yeah.
And are they separate?
Office of the Aging and DSS.
Depends.
They work
That's why I
together.
did, yes, yeah.
But they have different departments.
ADRC is the accurate.
Yeah.
one.
ADRC. So when I bring this back 2.5 years from now, I'll have
It'll
it ready.
change again.
Oh, I have it on.
Yeah.
So vehicles are added one of two ways. They're purchased through the carpool fund or through grants. There's different departments that have grants, like, Gina was able to get a grant for her cars. And then they're removed when they reach the end of their service. This shows, how many cars we have that are a certain model year. So I wanted to show that, it as the older cars have gone out of service and been sold, and the newer cars have increased.
So another problem that we've discussed here among the group is that quite often there's older cars that are sitting that we're selling off as rusted out, but they're not really worn out, and we need to somehow focus on getting those older cars up to the mileage that we shoot for and getting them down the road at a little bit earlier time, rather than having set to rust out.
And that's one of the major bullet points that Melissa and I are working on.
And getting them from fleet to pool could change some of that too.
Man,
So it appears we've got a lot of pool cars in the last 21, 22, and 23. When somebody who needs a pool car, how does it determine which car they get? Because if I'm an employee, I want the 22, but should we be using up the 13s, 14s, and 15s first?
This is the whole fund, I believe, this is in.
This is fleet and carpool,
This is
but
fleet
I
and
understand what
carpool.
you're saying is
but-
when.
yes, man, that was one of the things we were talking about, is, you're taking the older one, we gotta get the mileage on it, so then it'll, we'll get it down the road.
So, but the question is, who determines what car is used in carpool?
So Jamie determines what car needs to be removed and
No.
what car is the
No,
best.
no, I need a car tomorrow, because I'm gonna go up to 2 months time for things. Can
Oh,
I
we
take a
have-
22, or does he decide that I take a 15?
Oh, no, you can pick from the carpool thing, which I think Al.
I see a lot of heads on it, they're going, hey, we can figure something out here.
Yeah. Go ahead, Melissa.
Deb and I actually talked about this yesterday about, maybe we need a process or a procedure so that it does make the cars that we want them to use be the ones that they're assigned, instead of them just taking the newest car that was delivered.
Because the Dana's point is, why are we selling, cars that are 12 years old with only 40,000 miles on them? Everyone wants to take a new car out. We've got a ton of new cars that are only 3 or 4 years old, so why would an employee take one of the older ones?
Yeah, so that's what we're working on addressing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Those are probably.
The average mileage is 150,000.
Then we don't need.
Is that what we're trying to get? Because the ones we've been selling aren't nowhere near 150,000.
No, that's the total mileage in carpool. So the 15 cars that are in carpool tend to aggregately add up to 150,000 miles for the year. Just carpool, not fleet.
Okay, so all the cars in carpool get 150,000
No,
miles.
no, they're using about 10,000 a year, John, if you did it by an average.
But they're not averaged that way, because they're cherry picking which car.
Right.
We had a system before I came here where they were assigned and it was, I guess the new system where you pick the cars is easier for everybody involved, but we're gonna work on how we can direct it more towards the older cars. That's what you
Just don't buy new cars and it fixes itself. No, make them use it. You don't have anything new for them, they're gonna go.
Oh, no, next page. So there was questions about cars that were sold and this shows what months I brought the cars to committee and the number of cars that I brought to sell. So in 2022, we sold 30 cars, and in 2023 so far, we've sold 17.
Okay, how many cars did we buy in 2022 and how many cars did we buy in 2023? Just trying to get it.
33 and 9.
Okay.
And the last page is.
Two.
As far as carpool, people are purposely not using them, because we use the newer ones rather than the old ones. That's the way it works, and I don't know, longer than another place like that. You get used to using the same car over and over.
Yes.
And so, do we need to keep them? Is there mileage that we have to get to before we can send them off?
The carpool cars are rotated into the fleet cars.
Yeah.
So fleet doesn't generally get new cars. They get rotated in, and that's where the sheriff cars go and the carpool cars go.
So the ones at the beginning part, the older versions of cars, that we're probably using, they're not part of the 150,000 miles. It's in there. Not even.
I can tell you if you give me a couple of minutes where those cars are housed. Like I know that the 2005, I think it is in DPW. I don't know where the 2008s are, but they are mostly in fleet.
It's a specialty vehicle.
So if we,
don't use them.
if we have 15 carpool cars, and let's change it day to day, on average, 13 go out every day, or 2 go out every day, or is it a variety all week long, and all month long is totally different? How many do we need in there if we're only using 6 a day consistently? I need 15, or if there are 13 going out every day, we need all of it.
So Matt, we had that discussion too, that, you know, if most days only 6 are going out, and then there's one day a week where you're using 14, maybe we should reschedule so that, you know, we wouldn't have to carry so many cars to cover that day.
Do we have that data or no?
We do. We have the data for every day, what cars went out and who took them. And that is also what we're working on, Melissa and I, to see if, you know, if there's something like that that can be done. Sure.
And is that data also being transferred over to the fleet cars? Let's say there are 33 fleet cars, but we only use 11 of them every day, or we use 29 every day, to see if that fleet pool is the right number or not. Is that data being used in?
So that,
Some of those will be specialty vans, so Matt.
Yeah, I know, but they're all gonna be different.
but that data is what we are trying to determine from meeting with the department heads that we think that we might be able to make changes.
I think you need a car czar after next year. I think Dan will be the guy you want to hire. Who gets what car when and when they need to purchase.
So,
Yeah.
You can get all around to work together to get that taken care of.
The dartboard, but you showed it 2022, 33 cars bought. That includes the ones that were bought with grants?
yes,
Okay.
everything up there includes grants, peanuts. That's it.
More questions?
No more questions.
You have no other, right?
For me, new car czar.
Did you say you wanted to make a statement?
Yeah. I think we have to assign somebody special to take care of this at a lower rate of pay than the 2 highest paid in the county.
I don't have that designation anymore. You want to change it? Okay, so I have the Highway Association Christmas Party is on December 6th at 10:30 at the American Legion in Cambridge. So hopefully everybody can come. And the Bridge New York program information went out. I will send it to the supervisors. I believe the superintendents have already gotten it. That includes the culvert. This culvert is.
Yes.
Do we get a copy of that? Do you have anything printed out?
That will be on, so all of the information is on the agendas when it gets posted on the website.
Okay.
You know how you send out bid requests for different things and concrete, culverts and rail and things like that? Is concrete included in that?
Well, our concrete tends to be project specific.
Different types of contract for concrete for the project?
It has something to do with how the delivery, length is.
Okay. All count.
So we have to tell them where our projects are to get a good price for our concrete.
You don't have like a northern price, southern price?
We know what projects we have, so that's what we tend to do. But no, we don't have northern.
Which are you? Is there a vendor that does the whole county that gives you a bid for the whole county?
I don't.
Oh, we should get it delivered, but I don't have to. Or we get it delivered for Thursday County.
Anything more for Deb? Anything more for the committee? Yeah. Oh, you got them all out of that.
Oh, what do you get?
I'd like to call the Public Safety Committee for this November 28th. Order, please. Very much. Motion to accept the minutes for October 31st meeting. Dave, second, Dana, discussion, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Department reports, we have. Dave, are you? Sir. Please.
Friendly discussion.
Well, we have some new orders. Oh, so.
Yeah.
Just have a couple things. The good news, Glens Falls Hospital Board, there will be no change in tuition for the next year. The rate will be the same. The only thing that will change on Glens Falls is storage for over so many days, but we never run into that as an issue. So that's going to maintain the same as what we're currently paying. NMS Labs, they're the ones that do all our testing. We're looking, requesting about a 20% increase for this year. For certain tests, not all the tests went up, but some of them did. There is a discount price based on volume. And under the New York State Suitors, which is a state agency that looks at unintentional death in investigation related to overdoses. They have a grant now, they're gonna pay $150 back for every toxicology drug related that we submit to them after the autopsy report is complete. So we'll be getting $150 back on each drug overdose case, which will help a little bit, but it's, but there is a 20% increase. And also, the next one is, Dana, did you have a question?
Yeah, you're talking about the lab work.
Yes.
Is that testing and toxicology and the blood study? It's 45,000, but you think there's a 20% more that you're gonna need on top of 45,000?
I think that's already built in, right? We just got this, information from NMS Maps.
Because the 2023 budget was 45, the 2024 is 45, so nothing has been increased.
Almost they spent.
14,474 through September, through early September.
So you got money that we got.
Our burn rate sounds pretty good. We're not burning our budget, so that's helpful to know. Well, it all depends on
How many people?
how many people are needed. It's certain.
And Bob, they're mandatory.
On all drug overdoses, right? The state requires that, death certificates, the exact toxicology for drug overdose has to be on the death certificate, so we have to do it.
That just wants to make that clear that this is not an arbitrary thing, it's speaking to, it's gotta be done.
Well, it appears right now, budget wise, we seem to be budgeting well enough above what we think our costs are gonna be, because we can't predict those costs.
I'm just curious, 45,000, do you know how many deaths that funds? So I know every year if you have more deaths, it's gonna cost more, less deaths, but do you know how many people $45,000 is?
Well, I can tell you that the tests are, there's a scale for the different tests. Depending on what test he has to do, some tests are $450 per test. Some tests are going to be $188. So depending on what test he has to use, will be the cost per body, so to speak.
All right, Al, you're a good math man. How many 450,000 or how many $450 tests can 45,000 do? 450. Right? What's that?
141 is the average between the two ranges he just gave. That's
Well,
the average.
But I'm sure the budget bills for the maximum number, which is $450.
The guy behind me doesn't agree.
I don't.
Is it what was last year's number? Okay.
Between the ranges he just gave, that would be the number divided.
Divide that by 45,000.
Well, I don't think you can, you can't have one single test at
Right.
a time, it's depending on what, you know, whether it's suspected, and then 2 or 3 different tests sometimes for the same person. Right. So I don't think it's that ridiculous. It's not a 1-to-1 relationship there.
It's 100 worst case scenario.
Different
Yeah,
tests
100
we
would
actually
get
use.
there, that's probably a good one.
Tim?
I just want to remind the group, last year was our first year budgeting individually for these things. The year before, everything went to one giant pot out of the coroner's funds. So this is our first good look at what 1 year looks like, looking back at 2023 year to date.
Excellent point, thank you. Any other questions on that? Part of the agenda? Go ahead.
The next area is our coroner's physician. That's a 2-year contract, and that's up this year. That's about an increase from the last 2 years to now will be an increase of about 2,364. And most of that is having to do with medical insurance. We use our county physician a lot of cases. Many times when we can't get a family doctor to sign a death certificate, we use the county physician to sign, so we don't have to send them for an autopsy. If he will sign, that saves us some money in that respect. But he's also used a lot of cases, if we need medical information, he's our point to get a hold of him to look at the charts, to get some medical information that we need, even on a post that we're sending. He really plays a vital role in the coroner's office as the coroner's physician.
that a fixed cost that expenses to the contract, or is
It's
it
a contract, yes.
per body, per year?
Total for each year is 11,292. It was 8,928, so it's an increase of about 2,000, a little over 2,000. I believe we have to ask for bereavement or procurement of these services. NMS is really the only,
It's a special.
it's their specialty, it's the only one around. Most Hospital obviously is the closest facility, and family physician is one that we've been using for the last few years.
You gave a procurement policy on like that.
Yeah. Motion by Dana, second.
But this budget is for Hudson Headwaters, not Glens Falls Hospital. How do we use both?
Glens Falls Hospital is where we do the most.
That's where the morgue is
That's
located.
where the marks are.
But Dr. Sirica is employed through Hudson Headwaters.
Now, Dr. Sickering is an independent contractor, forensic medical services.
What do we do with Hudson Headwaters?
That's where our county physician comes out, Dr. Gallagher.
We have two doctors. Dr. Sirica and another doctor.
Dr. Sickering is the forensic pathologist who performs the autopsies. And Dr. Gallagher is the coroner's physician who decides with the coroner on non-forensic cases.
So we have a motion on the table to, waiver for the procurement policy for the services.
Where is Dr. Sirica paid in this budget?
He's paid in the medical part of that. I mean, how's that listed, Tim? Is it?
Autopsy services. Yeah. So we pay Dr. Sirica 100,000. Then we pay the doctor that signs death certificate 10,000.
Well, Dr. Sickerick assigns the death certificates on forensic cases, and his fee is 1,500 per case. So he only gets paid for that case per month.
Any other discussion, motion? All's in favor? Aye. Opposed? Carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody have
I think
questions?
it's excellent that we actually know what the medical examiner is doing before we kind of never. He's from Hartford too, you know.
Thank you very much.
I figured.
Any questions?
Figured that you're good, right? To go without saying.
Yeah.
Like every year you go through this budget time.
We're gaining fidelity on this part of our budget.
Take a shot at it.
All right. So, next up, I guess, we have EMS on the agenda.
Bigger in the heart.
Advisory board appointment.
Hey,
So the floor is yours.
you sure you wanna say that today?
Yeah.
How much time you got?
Well, we do, we gotta give ourselves about 5 minutes.
Can't get comfortable. Anyway, Debbie has everything that I have so far, Debbie, they're not all complete, okay, so. I think there's a few first responders that are not prepared, but, I guess for
What about 14 that we have?
Yeah, I asked for Gordian since, last week and I was never given it, so. You know, that'll be acted on after the first year or whatever, okay, but these are all to be acted on today. So that, the appointments all end.
We have a list of the.
We have, Debbie has a whole list of,
We didn't copy all the individual pages of the squads. Want to hear who they all are.
Yes, ma'am.
West Forty Regina Ladd. MS. Member Jacob Gibson.
he's new.
From the Fire Department, Male Danver. Whatever Rescue Squad, John Smith, Acting Volunteer Fire Company, John Stone. Michelle Marvis, Rainbow Rescue Squad, Jim Zinn, Washington County Harbor Volunteer. Ingers Valley Rescue Squad, continued appointment of Chief Mark Spezio. County Advisory Board, Ingers Volunteer Fire Company. Fortean Rescue Squad, First Assistant Captain Haley Noble, I believe the EMS name. Jeanette Carmen is the Shushan First Responders Representative. Salem Vicky Campbell, Salem Rescue Squad, and Cascade Volunteer Fire Department, John Sloan.
Thank you, ma'am. Any questions about the names? Yes. Thank you. Do I have a second? And Dave.
This is for all 14, but that's the 14. That was your motion, right?
All 14. Thank you.
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I mean, on this list, some of these were not EMS squads, some of these were first responders from fire companies. Not every fire company is a first responder. Bruce, do you know how many fire companies do a first responder? Hartford is one. And I think you said Casa Unit Fire. Shushan Fire.
North Granville had one, I don't know, Tim, no, all right, so that's gone. So Fort Ann has one, Speedyboro has one, Hampton has one.
Maybe.
Yeah,
More than I thought.
there's a lot of them, to be honest with you, and well, they are fairly consistent with coming to the meetings, and I applaud them for that, so.
Any other questions? I know a lot, oh. Lack of manpower. The first responders don't.
Well, from my experience in Hartford, the first responders get there way earlier.
I think that's somewhat maybe opposite.
Depends on the region, but yes, I agree with you.
Yeah, the same in.
Yeah, I mean.
Fire department.
Wait for, them to come down.
You have to have a special certificate for your fire company to be a first responder.
From the state.
Any other discussion, questions? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carried.
Oh, I have.
Sure, thank you.
You're welcome. Anything else before I leave this hour, Chair?
Are you coming back next month?
I will be here next.
We have to vote every month until we get them all.
No, but I get another letter or whatever they come in, it goes to the advisory board, they approve it, and then it comes here, so. I wouldn't hope. Okay, they'll come in eventually, but they all vote anyway, so.
Thank you.
I won't go there today, I'll be very good.
Next up is the sheriff. Sheriff Peter. How are you today?
Marvelous.
Excellent. Sure. It's snowing, so that. The floor is yours.
I put this on the agenda. Yes, rather have, so.
Thank you. Do you want me to make a little preamble?
Yes.
Travis Whitehead from Warren County is here. Smartest man in Warren County. And Travis has been thinking lately and corresponding with me about ways that jails can save costs. And I know we do a shared services. So maybe there's something we could do between, because Warren County has a jail for the same reason Washington County has a jail. And Travis had this idea of maybe both jails have a pod for females. Maybe we could just have one jail that would have a pod for females. Maybe it would be a way to be a little bit more economical. I don't know if it's a good idea, a bad idea, so, but I think it's worthy of a discussion. Travis, can you?
Well, yeah, if I could just, say a few words.
Travis, can you stand here so the camera can see you?
Okay.
The public is watching.
I just like to point out that the reason I'm here really is questions about Warren County. And as I look at Washington County and what they've been doing, I'm quite impressed, actually. I'll note on your budget, that you, had for corrections, given the share of a over $5 million budget, and he spent just over $3.5 million. So he was like almost $1.5 million under budget. Warren County, and the reason why I'm here, we gave the budget, twice that. And then he came in $2 million over that. So, that's a concern to me. For just a note, they do have about 50% more, inmates over the course of the year. We were usually in the 90s. We're usually in the 60s. And I know that part of our problem, and I don't know how you guys are doing it, but I think we have similar sized jails. And I know that this issue was brought up years ago. The state said we had to staff for the number of beds we had, not the number of inmates we had. And the number of beds we have is like 184. The number of inmates after bail reform and everything else is in the 90s. So we have 80 correction officers. We have an additional, lieutenants, cooks, and stuff like that in addition to those 80. Those 80 actually were not hired because we're filling in the blanks with overtime from the other, say, 70 that are employed. This is all adding to costs. So my basic question for our sheriff, who, by the way, didn't show up at this meeting that we had at the county just a week ago. So I'm still wondering about what his response might be. But yes, I was wondering about a couple of things. One would be economies, the fact that these jails are only about 10 miles apart. We go to the same hospital, probably, to watch people. There's probably opportunities for shared services. We probably both have relatively small populations of females. We're in a pod situation. We have a whole pod dedicated to females. We have 3 other pods that they distribute males. In addition, there are problems that we haven't experienced yet, and maybe you haven't experienced yet. But I know the state has come down on, for instance, Broome County recently had a protected class there, a person that was saying that their gender was uncertain, and sued that county. The county ended up agreeing to a whole bunch of things, and then also gave that person $160,000. So these are things that we have to be concerned about, and I'm sure you guys are concerned about. But also, one of the ideas I had is we had 4 pods, and if we could go ahead and say close one of them, and not close one. We have 46 beds in a pod. So take all but say 4 beds out of there, or 6 beds out of there, and then you'd have areas that you could put special classes in, and yet you reduce the head count by 40, therefore not needing to staff that, etc. So these are some of the ideas that I had, but I haven't been able to bounce them off our sheriff, and Supervisor Half giving me the opportunity to bounce them off of you guys. I was so impressed by how you handled that fleet deal. Those are the kinds of things I don't see happening with the word count. They end up fighting all the time about all kinds of things, but they don't talk about sensible things. What can we do to improve? Perhaps the sheriff could enlighten me on how he can do such a good job. How you can have, why we have more than twice the budget, yet only 50% more in inmates. Would you like to say a few words? Sit down.
Well, I'd like to encourage your supervisor have to bring more guests. But before, I'd like to acknowledge, Bill Breer is a new jail administrator. And, any compliments that are given to me, obviously, are.
Is there any life to this? Maybe a female pod for both counties having one pod?
I'm sorry, I missed the first part.
Is it doable where we could have shared services where we have one pod for females that both counties use, instead of one jail, one pod for females?
Yeah, everything is governed by the Commission of Corrections. And that's why we're staffed at the levels that we're staffed at. But that's when the jail was built. That was way before me. Since that time, though, there's been a lot of changes to classifications, for instance, and that's what drives the number of officers that we need. Why, even though our population goes down, we still need sufficient staff to meet all the different classifications. Then you mentioned the gender issue. That's not new, but the case that he was referring to happened in a couple of counties. And we have a policy that addresses that. We're kind of tweaking it a little bit because there's been some recent changes. We don't want to put a policy out that changes a week later. But we've had those type incidents come up, we handle them properly. We always take the safety of the inmate and the officers first, regardless of what the situation is at booking. And that's where they kind of got jammed up. As far as I don't want to compare counties, especially compare close by counties. But I can just say that we are fully staffed. We have one vacancy, which is unheard of. Probably out of the 6 surrounding counties, they're all down double digits vacancies. That's what's driving their overtime. So with all that being said, yes, we could take inmates from other counties, but that would have to be allowed by the commission. It'd have to be the substitute jail order, is what's called. We do that in the case of wardens. We have wardens. So really, our county is in a favorable position at this time because we are fully staffed, because we could take more inmates should other counties reduce the number of their staff because they can't fill vacancies, which is what seems to be occurring.
So you think the answer is, instead of reducing our staff because we have too many, we can market that out to other
Well, I wouldn't say we have
jails that are going to reduce their staff? That kind of is opposite of economical, isn't it?
No, I think it's a revenue source. We have, our population is down. Every county's population is down. We're in the 70s. We used to be in the hundreds before COVID, before jail reform. But every jail population is down. But the problem that counties are having is staffing. There's a county close by that's down 30 officers, and they don't know what they're gonna do. And I think Warren might be down double digits, but again, I don't compare counties to county. So the fact that we are one away from being fully staffed, and that person, I think, just make the medical, will be fully staffed, which if we continue to be next year or this coming year, our overtime will be lower than I budgeted for sure.
Well, I didn't hear an answer to one pod for females.
Oh, we could do it. We do it already, but what I'm saying is, we're actually in a position where we could take from other counties if they can't fill vacancies. They just don't hire, or they go to the state and they have a staffing analysis done, which is a slippery slope, because that's how some counties got in the position they're in, is the state came back and unexpectedly said, you need to hire 15. So that's the danger in having a staffing analysis. I think we're adequately staffed. I don't think we're overstaffed, even though our population is down. I guess is the answer to that. And that's mostly due to classifications and due to other state regulations that are put in place on jails that we have to adhere to, kind of like with the gender issue.
Chair, two things. One thing is that, some jails are using parts of their, cells for housing, transitory, care so that people can get jobs. So they house, they're free, but they can be housed in the cell, provide an address so that they can get a job and go back and forth. And that's what they need. So the recidivism goes down. Yeah, that's a potential, it is happening, it's working, the numbers in that prove that. The other thing is, I'm really impressed with them. Whoever is doing the foster care packages between the inmates and the COs, what a great thing. And thank you for doing it. So, Ben Deebs, have you ever talked with them?
Sorry?
Ben Deebs,
Yeah, I know the name.
yeah, would it be worth, I mean, housing is difficult in the county right now. You know, if you could take a population of people that might have to go out and can't find housing, this could provide, a positive way for them to be in a population.
There's a couple jails that are doing that, you're correct, and they're much bigger than us, and they're like Albany County, for instance, where they have probably 1,000 inmates or whatever, and they still, I think their jail was built for more than that, so they did close a pod, they can do that because they normally could hold, twice that. And we're really not in that position. We're using all of our pods for different things, mostly to do with the regulations and the classifications of the state force on county jails.
So Dana Traps are here to talk about efficiencies and using things as efficient as possible and investigate how that might work together. If they came up with a solution, are you telling us that we didn't have to go through all the bureaucracy of the state and get approval and all that kind of stuff? Or is there local control that if it was apparent that moving some females from one pod to the other jail, we could do that without having to ask permission, we can make it happen?
No, we still have to get the substitute jail order from the state. It would be board again. I mean, it's kind of awkward talking about, but if there was a jail experiencing staffing issues, right? So they're down 10 officers or 20 officers or whatever. If they were to go to the state and the state says, yes, you're able to operate at 10 lower officers. If they had inmates that they wanted to then board out, to meet whatever the state calculation is of why they need what they need. And if it's less, they could use less inmates. If they only had a few females, for instance, then, who could take it? But they could pay us less than what it would cost to fill those 10 positions.
So you could investigate all this, we could come up with all the data and come up with a solution, but the state could still say, nah, we don't quite like that.
But in my opinion, it's not our problem. I feel we're in a good position, staffing wise, based on our population, based on the classifications, based on the fact that, we're not over budget, we're not, I think we're in a favorable position, and it's, unfortunate for some of the counties that can't get staff and that are spending a lot on overtime because it's a difficult situation to be in.
Hang on, Jeff. If Warren County says they've got 5 female inmates and that creates a whole pod, you can take 5 inmates, female inmates, and they could pay you for that, and you could accept that with no additional cost to Washington County. You could bill Warren County for it. They could save that whole pod cost. A, that would be good for everybody. Am I correct in that?
Yeah.
And B, you would just need a thumbs up from the state to make that happen.
Right. And we
Is that accurate?
we have boarded.
I think what he said is that Warren County would have to
Go to
initiate
the
that.
state to do that, right?
But I was thinking more like on an annual basis we do it, but it sounds like if you have to board somebody, it's like case by case. And I don't think you can really build a program on case by, and if we're accepting rental, I don't know what you call the money you get for boarding fees. That's money, so I don't think that is shared services, because shared services is no money, right?
Correct.
So I don't think this will be a shared services thing, but it could be. It wouldn't benefit us. Well, yeah, the more borders he gets, because he gets a little bit of revenue, I'm sure, and it would benefit Warren County because they don't have to employ
Many staff.
The same.
Can't hear you.
So it wasn't too many years ago, we got dinged for not having a sufficient staff over there. But the state, they came in and did an evaluation, we had to hire a bunch of people. I think that put us in a good position when we get into all the one-on-one sort of, staffing issues that we have mandated now, because I, railed about it on funded mandates at the time. I do, however, think that there is, some potential here. Although I think another county would have to initiate, don't they have to do we can take in orders, now, we haven't got, I don't think we get, take their tool for that, we've been doing it for years. But if somebody wanted to say, we're closing a pod and sending them all to Washington County, they would need the permission from the state, is that correct?
Right. And then they would approve our jail as a substitute.
Right.
Like Dave, first go ahead.
So a few years ago, our overtime costs were substantial. And we managed that by adding more staff and spreading it out. We've added another result is that it created less stress on the current staff because, you could be working an 8-hour or double and all of a sudden no one comes in, they gotta stay there. But I think we managed that properly to manage that expectation and help our staff out.
Yeah.
That's an excellent point.
Yeah, we requested 4, and I think we were $100,000 under budget and overtime the year we did that. So,
The year before, we were like $900,000.
never been that high. It was starting to get in the 6s, and that's when we added,
So,
We keep talking about females and the pods. I mean, I think our ratio of females is substantial. I mean, we have a large number of female inmates. And the pod that they're in could be considered full by the state. Am I right on that?
yeah, but we can switch pods, which we've done in the past, and that's what we discussed, Bill and I have discussed. If we were to enter into agreement with another county, we could move the females that are in the A pod, which is 25. So
We can hold, we have 24 dorms, dorm beds, supposed to be at 4 cells. Right now, our population for female inmates is only small.
Oh,
Yeah, so it's mandatory.
So if it wasn't, if it was more than the 28 that we could have in there, then we would move some males in there that are classified that can stay together, move the females into a bigger pod, and then we can take more people.
you have the ability to move them.
Yeah, we've done that in the past.
I think that, but
I want to commend the sheriff. We had this discussion 6 or 8 years ago. We tried everything that you're talking about, and you have to get an agreement from the state, to let those things happen, and they would never do it at that time, certainly. But basically, we've boarded when we've had the ability to board with those people that pay, and we can't, whatever, we've had to do different things to navigate the situation. And he's done a great job, and we always try to help our neighbors in these situations. And like you said, yeah, if you go and ask for this extra work, you might, the answer you get is the one you want. Yeah. As they found out from fast. So I don't know what we could change, but we're always looking. This is like an old story to me. I'm just replaying it. So I hear more, learn more, and get reminded of it all the time. But it's a great job you guys do, and I appreciate that, because that's why the budget does work, is because of those numbers we finally get to.
so I think what I'm sensing and what I've heard summarized is, the way our sheriff is leading and the jail is managing, we are doing very well. We do have a capacity to extend help to Jason County should they ask for it. But I don't think there's a whole nother series of pitfalls they have to watch out for if we get into the shared service staffing. So it might be a little. We could just ask the sheriff to take a look at that and, you know, work with our, any sheriff department. It seems like they may need some help there to get.
I think the answer is we just say we have vacancy at the end.
We have capacity, yeah, we have capacity. Yes, sir.
Yeah, I think, actually, I'm getting hit, or we're getting hit ourselves, because I don't think that, anyway, we ask them to board out or not, we have committee spaces, is what it is. But after hearing this, I think in my experience is the same with Ryan's, 6 years ago, when we asked whether we could get the number, we were told we needed a lot more staffing. And we were asked, well, can we reduce the size of the jail at that time? And he said, no. But I know other counties since then, many other counties have done just that. And things have changed in the last 6 years, about, they're closing prisons all over the place. They're allowing us to be shut down, et cetera. It seems to me that you've done a very good job on keeping on top of this. I know our old sheriff was looking at this, he's not there anymore. This new sheriff, I just don't think is a sport, responsibility. And I think he needs to go in and find out where we can get right staff. And because it is a problem, you know, 10 or 12 or even more vacancies and enforcing this overtime. You know, that's not going to make it a very attractive situation for anybody. So you know, it's actually really not good. But I think if we were to close a pod, you know, we staff for 184 and we only have in the 90s, you can close 1-4 pods and you'd still not be in a position. You still have 2 pods for males and females, and another pod that may be basically empty. If you remove the beds, it was okay for the state to say, okay, this is no longer a 46-bed unit. All the beds have been removed, it's been partitioned, you can use it for your gender challenged people, etc. I know it's a lot of part of the way you got it. Pronouns, other thing here. Excuse me, I'm not up on all the pronouns. So at any rate, I want to thank you for the time spent here, and the next discussions will be with the sheriff, our sheriff. And but I'd like to just commend you on it's a great pattern of follow. Thank you. Any other questions for the sheriff?
Yes, sir. Just with one point of clarity, because it may matter to Mr. Whitehead. As far as shared services go, if Warren County was able to actually shut down a pod by boarding out, the difference between manning that pod and the boarding, whatever the breakage is between those two numbers, would be eligible for shared services for 1 year. So there could potentially be a shared services measurement, but unfortunately, it's at one time. But it's something you should kind of, you know, it's something to bring into the conversation that whatever that difference, whatever the delta is between the manning and the boarding, that delta is eligible for shared services on Warren County. Thank you. Yeah. Thank you, all, Sheriff. Thank you for your time. Really appreciate it. Thank you, sir, for coming over. Sure. All right. Where's the code? There he is. He ran one. Everybody, John, what's yours?
Two things on the agenda. The first one was an update on our staffing. Back in July, we had someone who was previously a contractor and returned to contracting. So about 2 months later, we hired another person to take his place. You probably remember there's 6 weeks worth of training to become certified as a code enforcement officer. That gentleman's named Chris. He is in his 3rd week right now and will be completed with it beginning of February. So at that time, he will be taking over Hebron, Salem, and Greenwich. So he's moving right along, doing well on that. So Then the second thing that I had was, looking into our fees, our fee schedule. Some of our fees haven't been changed in almost 20 years. So what I started doing was comparing what we've charged over the years and seeing if we should increase it just based on that, and then I'm comparing it with some of our neighboring code enforcement offices. So I will be coming back to you folks with some recommendations. And how does that work? It's okay here, that would be a resolution.
Has to be a resolution, the local law and stuff, the code department allows this fees to be set by resolution.
Yep.
So that's how we did it.
So that's all I got.
Yeah, so that'll enhance his revenue line.
I have a question, Roger. At the town, when we have our fees, it says, then we can change those from time to time.
Right.
We can't do that at the county. It has to be a law that says what the fee is,
No,
and
the
we gotta
law-
change
the
it from time to time.
No, the law that set up the code department references fees and said the board can change fees by resolution.
Okay.
So we don't have to do it in the law.
Right.
We just, right, the
Your
fee
committee to the full board.
That's from time to time.
yeah. Before John leaves, could you ask him to talk about electrical inspections since that's like the Friday?
Oh, yes,
It's my contact.
yes. Brian had a question.
Yeah, first of all, I wanted to say, I don't know where the happy medium is on the fees. I mean, we don't wanna hamper, building is bad enough now. I don't wanna hamper them with extra fees to even get started. So, well, I think there's a happy medium there. The second thing, it seems like I'm still signing a lot of building. I don't know what everybody knows. It just seems like there's a lot still going on. Can you tell us where that's at?
At the end of each month, I do a comparison of where we are compared to other years as far as the number of permits. Both septic and building permits were up, slightly, over the last 5 and 10-year averages. I get that information and send it out to you when I run it a few days here, Friday up to the first. So, but the numbers are up slightly. The revenue is a little low right now on the building permit side. Some of the other stuff is higher, so we're actually at, I think, 99% overall income for what we had budgeted already. The building side of that's a little low. That's what got me looking into this. So on your first point, that's why I wanted to compare it with how other folks are doing it, other department or other, other departments, so that we're not, pricing ourselves way up there. But there are some that, like our building without a permit fee or fine is 100% of what the original fee would be. So say they're building a house, and it would cost a $250 fine or $150 fee. We charge that again. There are some places that 500%. Not what I'm recommending, but that's why I'm looking.
They're not built on that, I do those.
Right.
That's what I want to do.
Well, the tricky thing with that is if you get somebody who's homeowner and they just, bought a shed, that's a different story than contractors been doing it for years. So that's the concern out having that in place. Yeah. So that's why I'm comparing it with other departments, just to make sure that we're not way out there. Any other questions for John?
This new inspector that's being trained, when he gets his inspector certificate on what we call it, he's technically capable of doing septic, correct?
Yes.
How many inspectors do you assign to septic? I'm still just one.
Still one for reviews. We do have some that will fill in if that person is out on vacation. Do the actual inspection.
Why do you have just one? I know the answer is because he's had special training, but special training is not a requirement for you to be
It's not
certified. to do
beneficial.
this.
Beneficial, because otherwise we might be approving stuff. we shouldn't be approving.
We agree it's not required.
So, yeah, so I reached out to, one of the training folks, companies in the area.
And they had tabled their training for the rest of the year. This was probably back in June, I would say. Because they're reevaluating the classes and stuff, trying to partnerships, more scientists. They specifically do wastewater treatment training. Reached out to them 2 days ago to find out where that stood, and they said that by the beginning of 2024, they're gonna have a schedule. They thought they have a meeting in a couple of weeks to try and figure out what that training is going to be. And once that training is available, it's my plan to have
Everybody go through, so that all inspectors in your eye would be assigned to a job. All right, that's progress, thank you.
Dan?
Yeah, Jen, I might have misheard, but I thought I heard somebody say that if you bought a shed delivered, you don't need a permit for that.
If it's under 144 square feet, you don't. Anything over that, it does.
Okay, so, but let's say 144 square feet, if I hired a contractor to come in and build that shed on site, it's on skids and movable, I need to get a permit then?
If it's under 144.
Okay, good. I just want to make sure I heard that.
That's spelled out in the local law. That number.
I'm gonna go with Jake, go ahead, sir.
Just off the end question, you know, people are buying huge sheds from the Amish and they're saying they're movable, so they don't require a permit. They do. I mean, I know they do, and all you just, I see people get upset about that.
Same question.
We have people now that it's becoming more common, they're buying a shed and then they want to move into it. And there's all kinds of headaches that come with that. Yep, it'd be nice if the shed companies would point them in our direction first, so they're not. All right, any other questions for John? Give me an update. Oh, yes. One more thing, if you give them a chance. All right, so during the meeting, board meeting, Friday ago, person brought up how he had thought that Roger told our department that we couldn't do electrical inspection. That is not at all what was said. What was said at the point in talking with that gentleman, he was looking for someone to do an electrical inspection, informed him that we don't do those third-party inspections. He wanted a list of who can provide those. We had a person 3 or 4 years ago, we used to hand out a list and it would have 3 or 4 or more different people, engineers, floor door tests, whatever, just to help the folks out. But somebody wasn't on that list, and instead of asking to be added to the list, they made a stink about it, and in the interest of liability, Roger said, that's not on the list anymore. I get told this gentleman, we don't do lists. A list implies endorsement, and we don't vet anybody, we don't know that they're licensed, unlicensed, good, bad, or indifferent. So I recommend to John, we just not do a list, or if we were gonna do that, then we need to see licenses, we need to take all comers, we need to make sure that there's a process for getting on it, a process for getting off of it, a process for verifying it from time to time, etc.
And as for the tow truck, there's complaints about not getting their fair share.
We're getting overcharged.
Overcharged.
Yeah.
There's a practical problem, though, that we're not helping our
Right.
residents with, and the phone book doesn't come out with yellow pages anymore. If you're not savvy on how to go online and search, there's a lot of people that are in that book. How, it's not our job to help them, that's what we say. How do these
Well-
people get the information? I guess they go to the town clerk or something, I don't.
Yeah, to be completely open, what I tell people when they're asking, like say somebody said, hey, I need an engineer to do something. What I say is we're not allowed to have the list here, but I hear that the town of Queensbury has. I don't like the order allowed. It's not recommended, sorry.
Right.
It's not.
But how do
recommended.
our residents that are in this pickle How do they get out of that? They don't, nobody publishes yellow pages anymore. When was the last time you even got a phone?
They had a lecture about contractors doing electricity, the contractors could tell them where to.
Yeah.
In that case, yeah.
We don't provide you with contractors, you wanna build a house.
True.
Well, it's something guy, if you wanna, right?
I guess you're right.
There's one additional thing, if we recommend somebody does a crappy job.
That is that way. That's what it's all people.
Thing like that, I suppose, I don't know, that's the same topic as well, topic of solid waste here, but when you're a grown up, you solve your problems. You create waste, you figure out a way to get rid of it. If you wanna build a house, you figure out a way to build a damn house. It's not up to government to solve your problem.
Personal responsibility.
Yeah, right, and then, it's not up to government to solve all your problems.
Hey, you changed my mind. You're absolutely right, Bob. Never mind.
So you don't want water next to, what do you do now?
No, Bob changed my mind. I temporarily is straight off the course. Thank you.
Any state, go it out the window.
Okay.
Got it.
Anything else for John? All right, John, thank you. Public defender, sir.
I'm sorry, can I ask one more question?
Yeah,
So, that gentleman that suggested that we don't have electric inspectors in Washington, he was absolutely wrong. We should have inspectors.
I don't,
We just don't endorse that.
right,
So he was
we don't have
wrong.
any on staff.
Got it. Well, he was saying there's no water, I thought he said there was no electrical inspectors in Washington County.
You did.
That's what
He did, I wasn't sure if he meant in the department or in the county proper. And
Right.
I heard him.
He referenced
I
Warren
thought,
County.
I
He
thought he
referenced
meant county
Warren County.
proper.
It's totally up to Warren County.
Third floor is yours. Thank you. First update would be the 2023 revenue total, because we just received another distribution from Indigent Legal Services. It's up to $1,190,196. And I have a copy of that for you, Debbie. We have that motion to accept revenue? Yeah, I'm just giving you an update on that. We're up over $1.1 million for revenue. I believe we have no outstanding requests for funding from Indigent Legal Services. We recently submitted 2 requests, which I believe have both been approved. We're just waiting on the contract process. We have one outstanding grant that I have talked to Tom Chalky about in the assigned council office, and we've decided we are not going to apply for it. It is a model upstate family court grant. It is intended to create a model family court office. My view is it's really intended for the more metropolitan or urban areas, and it would not benefit us to apply for that grant. So that's an update on that. And the last issue I have is reappointment, and I am requesting that I be reappointed. Okay. Second by Stu, second by Dana. Discussion, is there?
You have a stump speech?
Not prepared.
I apologize. Well, that's kind of underperforming, isn't it?
Perhaps.
I have a question. Earlier in DPW, we're looking at carpool, car fleets, and the district attorney, I think, was 5 or 6 cars. Public defender was 1 assigned car. How do you get away with just 1 car?
We use our own vehicles primarily. We do have the fleet vehicle, which we take to the far reaches of the county, I would say. So the attorneys that handle White Creek, Cambridge, Easton tend to take the vehicle from the office to court and then bring it back to the office and get back in their own vehicle. And I think we use it when we're heading up north occasionally as well.
What do you do when there's the central arraignment every morning here, whatever, afternoon? It's your own personal vehicle from
Yeah.
your new office that you.
Yes, I would say 80% of our travel for work is in our own vehicles.
And then there's mileage for that, so you really don't need a fleet vehicle because you're charging mileage on your personal car.
No, I'm not. If I'm not charging mileage to the county. Nobody is charging the county for our mileage. We're not being reimbursed for it. We just drive our own car.
Why?
It's habit. Honestly, we've never gotten into the habit of using.
That's a very good stuff, Steve.
Any other discussion on that motion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed, motion carried.
Thank you, unanimous.
Thank you.
Any other business? Hearing none, we're adjourned.
Thank you.
Call personnel meeting to order. We're gonna have follow-up discussion on the real property director position. It would appear to be the smart thing to do to go in executive session to discuss that, unless somebody else has something else prior to that. If not, Roger will tell us why we're going to executive session.
We're talking about a person.
Specific person.
We're talking about a specific person who matters leading to the appointment of.
Motion, Daryl,
Second.
Cassie, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, carried.